welcome back to the next video, and in this video we're going to be going over the 10 do's and don'ts of driving the sand dunes. So, the first thing you do want to do is bring an off-road flag. Now, if you don't know what that is by now, no problem. Let's go over that real quick. So there's really two main ways to mount a dune flag to your truck. So first off, a dune flag is a 10-foot tall, at least, fiberglass flagpole with an orange flag on top. The idea is, so basically, if you're going over a hill and you got your flag on top and the hill's still, up here, like the peak of the hill's up here, there's another car down here, they'll see the flag way up here before you crest over and they end up hitting you. That's the idea. So, you need a dune flag. They're completely mandatory, not just by Raptor Junkies, but by Silver Lake Sand Dune DNR. It's a rule. If you don't have a flag, you're not going in the dunes. Now, in terms of mounting the flag, there's a couple different ways. I like to do two specific ways. The first one is to get this tubular style mount. I don't know exactly who makes this, but if you Google dune flag tubular mount, this will come up. Basically, it's nice because it's aluminum. It just mounts right to a tube. You don't have to drill anything. You don't have to cut anything. And it has this feature where if you get the spring just right, you can actually fold the flag back for storage. Or you can bring it forward. Now, the other style of dune flag I like, which is on my truck, which is currently covered in plastic, is a bolt-on mount. See, my bumper has tabs welded onto it where I can put on various kinds of dune flags. So, for example, this is a spring and pin one, where a dune flag basically slides down, turns over, and then locks up and gets on there. Or you can do a simple style one, where the dune flag slides right over this, and you put a pin through the hole down here, which is covered up, and then that locks in your flag. All right, and the first thing you definitely don't want to do is be drunk. There's no drinking allowed on the Raptor Junkies shakedown event when you're on the dunes. It's a 100% sober event. If you're in your trailer and it's nighttime, that's your own prerogative. But when you're with us and you're doing our group activities, that's something else. This is a sober driving event. We're all in 7,000 pound trucks. Let's act like we're responsible with them. All right, now, the next thing you do want to do is get your ORV trail off-road stickers, all the out-of-state stickers. Now, those are included with your purchase of the Raptor Junkies package. But just in case you're not sure exactly what they are, let me show you. All right, so this is an ORV sticker. Now, the whole point of this basically just lets the DNR know that, oh, you already paid your fee to go use their dunes. This lasts you one season. You also have an ORV trail sticker that also lasts you one season. Now, if you're out of state like me, so meaning you're not from Michigan, you have to get a non-resident sticker, which goes on your windshield. It's pretty basic. Other than that, that's all you need, really. All right, the next thing you don't want to do is drive on high tire pressure. Now, that might sound a bit counterintuitive as everybody runs their trucks on the street with 44 pounds of air pressure for Gen 1. I'm not sure exactly what the Gen 2 or 3 require. Probably similar, I would assume. When you're in the sand, low tire pressure is your friend. See, the lower your tire pressure is, the more your sidewalls can bulge out on your truck tire. That allows your truck to have more contact patch in the sand, so you don't just sink directly into the sand when you hit the gas pedal. I personally like going to 12 pounds of air in the front and 11 in the rear. I know it sounds like it might sink the truck or that you might DB the tire. You won't. Just don't drive like an animal. Don't try doing donuts. You'll be just fine. The wider your tire gets, the more your truck kind of floats over the sand instead of plowing through it. I hope that makes sense. Now, there is a certain reason you don't want to go to 10 or to 6 psi. That, you might start debeating a tire. Now, if you have bead locks, that's a different story. You can go to 6 psi. Or if you have double bead locks, shoot, you could drive on 0 psi, but you'd just be destroying your tire at that point. Now, you don't want to drive like that on the road because you'll just destroy your sidewall. When I'm up there, I just air down to 10, 11, 12 psi when I get there and air up on the weekend drive or on the drive home for the following work week. And I just kind of leave it on low pressure, just bopping around the roads there if I have to. Everything's real close by, so it's not like you're having to drive 25 miles to the closest store to get anything. Everything's pretty close out there. Now, speaking of tires, this can kind of lead us into our next thing of do's. Do have a good set of tires. A good set of tires won't, have little tread blocks. You want to have a good meaty tread on your tires, so when you lower your tire pressure and you get in the sand, it can really bite and grab into the sand. You really don't want to have worn out tires or bald tires. Something with at least 430 seconds tread life is required. Right, so our next thing you don't want to do is you don't want to drive close to somebody. Now, I get when you're on the street, you know, you can be one truck here, another truck right here, and another truck right in front of you. No problem. But when you're in the sand, it's a totally different story. Space is your friend. You don't want to be close to somebody. As a matter of fact, even I like to think of it like this: driving within 50 feet of somebody is considered tailgating in the dunes. Because if they get into an accident and you're only 50, 60 feet away, your truck is not going to stop on sand that fast. You're going to hit them. It's not going to be a good day. So just keep your distance. You know, if I'm driving right here and I can see someone over here, maybe about 2 car widths away from me, I'll look to my right, make sure I'm in the clear on the right, and I'll veer off. And I'll put at least an 80 to 100 foot gap between me and somebody, even just on my side. When it comes to the sand dunes, you have to have your eyes on your head on a swivel, looking everywhere. Looking at your rear view mirrors is one of the most important things you can do, because if somebody's coming up from behind you and they don't see you, it's your responsibility to at least be able to see them so you can move out of their way so they don't hit you. You know, it's a dangerous environment, but as long as you're safe, you'll be just fine. All right, the next thing you do want to have is a good radio. Now, there's a company called Baofeng on Amazon, and what they have is basically just handheld UFH radios. So basically what that is, it's a little handheld radio about this big with a little antenna on it. And what you can do is basically tune into certain frequencies with the radio and have two-way communication. You can also get truck-mounted radios, so you can actually have a radio unit inside your truck, like maybe up here or down here or wherever you want, and then mount a big antenna on the back of your truck. That's a more costly option, and a lot of people find that going with a $60 Baofeng radio works just fine. The only thing is, it's not quite good for long-range communications. The Baofeng is more for, like, you know, car to car, me talking to somebody 200-300 feet right over there, not talking miles away. All right, the next thing you don't want to do is drive your truck like it's a full-on Baja truck. Now, I get that our trucks are built from the factory and they're very capable, especially for stock vehicles. And if you upgrade them, they're even more so capable. However, it's probably not the smartest idea if you see a fully built and roll-caged Baja truck hauling ass through the whoops at about 85 miles an hour. You probably wouldn't be very responsible to follow them at their same speed. Just know the limits of your truck and keep in mind it's a vehicle you're gonna have to drive home, and that could be to the other side of the country. So just keep that in mind. All right, so the next thing you're gonna wanna have, or you're gonna wanna do, is have a chase light. Now, a chase light is an amber light you put on the rear facing of a truck. So what that's gonna do is basically in night or in heavy dust conditions, you can turn that on, and people behind you will see that yellow light and they'll know there's a vehicle in front of them. It's especially helpful if you're trail riding in a group, because amber light cuts through dust, white light reflects off of dust and goes back into your own eyes. So you'll definitely want to have an amber light. Now, a chase light can be as advanced as having a full light bar on a vehicle, or you can just have amber pod lights mounted to your bed facing the reverse. Or a very popular option is people like to get amber third brake lights from Evil Off-Road or GJ Motorsports. And I think there's even a few people 3D printing them now and selling them. They can get a little costly, but even if you go the more economical route and just get some cheaper amber pod lights and just drill them into your bed and face them backwards, that works just as good too. All right, the next don't is a safety thing. You definitely want to keep close attention to what's inside of your truck. You don't want anything heavy in your truck that's loose. So for example, when you're bouncing around on the dunes and you're going fast and you're going over things and you're kind of moving your truck around and it's maneuvering, if you have, let's say, a 15-pound battery charger that's just swinging side to side inside of your cab, chances are that could hit your seat, that could jar you, that could even, you know, come up. I've seen things like that happen where actually you hit a bump and that bounces up over the center console and can even like land on your lap. It just makes a bad situation. It can startle you. It could jar your hands while you're steering. It could jar your legs while you're applying the brake or gas. It could be a very dangerous situation. So anything in your truck, just make sure it's secured, it's safe, or it's put away. Because the last thing you want is anything loose. And even things like, you know, water bottles, that could have the same effect too. It doesn't have to be something heavy. Anything loose could do that. The only thing I keep loose in my truck is my phone, and that's it. And even still, that's secured. I just consider that loose because it's not like it's strapped down or anything. All right, the next do of going in the sand dunes is make sure you have some kind of recovery gear. Now, a lot of people in our group have recovery gear, so if you're ever stuck, I'm sure there'll be someone within eyesight that'll be willing to help, because when we're all on shakedown, there's quite a few of us out there and we're all gonna help each other out. So recovery gear, there's a lot of things that go into it, but to keep it basic, you have your toe straps, you have kinetic ropes, and you have shackles, and you have traction boards. There's other things. There's also shovels and, small folding military style shovels, all kinds of stuff. Now, a regular strap is something you just hook up to your bumper, hook up to their bumper, really a tow point on the vehicle. I just generally use bumper because our trucks have tow points at the bumper from the factory. So you hook up to your tow points, and you can pull the truck out. Now, if you have a kinetic rope, that's a little better because that allows for some stretch so you don't jar the vehicles. That allows the truck to get an even, consistent pull from 0 to full strength instead of just jarring the vehicle free. You can also get a shackle, which allows you to hook up to certain areas on the vehicle. It's basically an intermediary part between the strap and the actual tow point of the vehicle. You can also do traction boards, which basically is it's a big plastic board about 4 or 5 feet long, depending on what you get. They make shorter ones. I've seen longer ones than that too, where you can basically put that underneath your drive tires on either side and you drive forwards. And the idea is you kind of crawl up onto that traction board, and that traction board grips the sand, so you can kind of get a head start or at least get over a crest. The last thing you want to do is park upwards on anything, whether it's a hill or a full jump or something. Whenever you park, you want to at least be level, but preferably be facing downhill. If you're facing uphill and your truck's been sitting, you're talking with your buddies for 2 hours, you go back in your truck, you're gonna get stuck. Even if you have low tire pressure, you better hope that right after that incline, like within inches of how you're parked, it starts going down, or else you're probably gonna get stuck. Now, this next point kind of goes along with what we were saying earlier about, keep your head on a swivel and be alert. Now, the dunes in general is a bidirectional area. Most of the dunes that, doesn't include the hills or the beach, is bidirectional. You can go any which way you want. You can go forwards, left, right, backwards, diagonal, however way you want to go. But in certain areas, there's a speed limit, there's directional signs, there's signs that mark the end of the dune boundary and the beginning of the pedestrian zone. You want to keep an eye on those areas. You definitely don't want to see those and ignore them, or just not see them at all, because if you get caught, you could get fined, you could get a ticket. The DNR out there, they're basically like full-on cops, or they can give you a written warning or whatever. The next thing you do want to do is just bring water with you. When you're out in the dunes for the whole day, you get pretty thirsty. And there's a food truck out there sometimes, but it's, I'll be honest, way overpriced. I think a bottle of water is like $7. It's like the same price if you go to like Six Flags. So just have 4 or 5 bottles of water, keep them in your center console, or somewhere that's safe and tucked away, but easily accessible for you. The next thing you don't want to do, definitely, is be reckless. Now, recklessness can come in many forms. It can become intentional if you're trying to get in somebody's way, or you're trying to, maybe be aggressive, which we want to avoid that at all costs. But recklessness can also be totally unintentional. When you're in the sand, let's say you're going over a crest and you're coming kind of downhill. It can look from where you're driving, it can look totally smooth. Sand kind of does this thing where it plays a trick on your eyes, where even though it might look totally smooth, there could actually be a drop off that you can't see. And if there's a drop off and you're going 40 miles an hour, you could have a bad day. So what I always recommend is do your first lap in the dunes, slow and careful, kind of feel out the terrain, see how it is, because the dunes can change every hour because of the wind. I've seen them change as fast as every hour, or sometimes it takes a whole weekend to start changing. It just depends on the wind. But always, always, always make your first lap nice and slow and careful. That way, you can avoid being reckless and hurting your truck unintentionally. And that way, when you take a slow line, you can see where the smoothest parts of the dunes are, and that's the area you can drive all over your weekend, making sure you don't overwork your truck and you stay as comfortable as possible. All right, the next do is something you want to have. So I like to have just like an extra set of valve stems and valve cores, and no, I'm sorry, not valve stems, but valve stem covers and the valve cores. I think you can buy a pack of valve stem covers for like $4 on Amazon or really anywhere, and you can get a 4-pack of valve stem cores for a couple bucks at any auto store. Now it's nice to have those because it just sucks when you're airing down your tires and you put your valve stem cap over there and you forget to put it back on, and then all of a sudden you get in the sand and the sand kind of gets in your valve stem and it kind of depresses it a little bit. Not enough to make a big issue, but a slow leak over a few days, it's not a good situation. So just have extra valve caps. That way, if you see one's missing, you can just pop a new one on. Same thing for your valve stem cores. I've seen people unscrew them to let tire pressure out. I do that too. Sometimes I've seen people cross thread them where the actual valve stem core all gets all messed up, but the threads and the actual valve stem are still okay. So you could just unscrew that, pop a new one in, you'll be good as new. All right, the next thing you don't want to do is have tunnel vision. And this, again, this goes back to our, driving safety and alertness thing. As you could tell, it's a recurring theme because it's very, very, very important. Tunnel vision is just about the worst thing you can possibly do in the sand dunes. I can remember just last year, I was driving with my dad. We were in his sand car and we were going about 85 miles an hour. That car is capable of doing high-speed sand dune driving, and we were booking it. And way off in the distance is this little kid in a four-wheeler, and this little kid's kind of moseying along, so we see her way before we even get relatively close to her. And so we start veering away. Mind you, this area is about 200 feet wide, and it's a long stretch, but there's trees on either side. So we can't veer off and we can't just do a quick 90-degree turn. So we're just moving all the way over and slowing down. This kid starts, turning towards us. So at this point, now we're like slowing down hard, but we're still going fast. So we're still going maybe 55 miles an hour. This all happens within a matter of seconds. This kid starts coming towards us because this kid has tunnel vision. He or she cannot see really what's happening because they're just focusing on, oh, look at me, I'm having fun in the dunes. So at this point, we're locking the brakes up, totally locking the brakes up. This kid now is getting closer and closer to the point where my dad has a cutting brake on his car, which locks up your left side rear tire. That way you can brake it. There's one for the left side rear tire and one for the right side rear tire. He locked his right side. Actually, he locked both of them. He basically used them as an e-brake. Locked up the rear tires, got to the point where we're now driving sideways on two wheels, and there's a little kid on a four-wheeler probably getting within inches of our car. We actually drove on two wheels and had to turn into the turn, which is a horrible idea because that's a great way to flip over. But we'd much rather flip a car than kill a little kid because they're being careless. So we're on two wheels, and this kid has no idea. And we get back on all four wheels, and this kid keeps going. We both look around expecting to see a helmet over there, a little kid over there, a four-wheeler way off in the distance, all crumpled up. Thank God nobody was hurt. We probably sat there for a good hour just contemplating, okay, how could we have handled that better? How could we change the situation? Just basically analyzing the situation and how to avoid that. Now, I can't say the same thing for that little kid, because as soon as our car landed and got back on all four wheels and we turned around and looked at it, that little kid was just moseying along their way. Didn't even notice, had no conception of what happened. Meanwhile, the whole time we were turning away and this little kid was turning towards us the whole time. It got to the point where, again, all the tires were basically locked up and we were on two wheels trying to avoid this kid. The kid had no idea. All this to say, that can happen with anybody in any car, in any circumstance, where you can be trying to avoid somebody and they'll just keep on coming towards you because they're not paying attention. That means you kind of have to pay attention for both of your safeties. That way you can avoid an accident. It is just so imperative, and I can't stress it enough, that you have to keep your head on a swivel. I like driving with my windows down, and unfortunately it just destroys my interior because I get sand everywhere in it, but I can hear everything around me. I open my rear glass, I open my side windows. If I could take out my windshield, I would, but I'm not going to do that. The ability to hear everything around you is so helpful because before I even see a car, or if there's a car in my blind spot, I'll hear it. And then I'll look, oh, he's right there. There's an open space here. I'll just get over and then they'll drive past you. It is so dangerous to be in a tunnel vision state of mind. Just avoid that at all costs. The next thing you want to do is just be aware of the speed limit areas. There's really only one main speed limit, and that's at the beach. It's 25 miles an hour, and it is directional, so you actually do have like a proper right lane, but it's kind of more of a guideline in terms of that right-left lane, because you'll see people going on both forwards and coming on both right and left sides. Just keep an eye on that. There are, those speed limited areas, and you can actually get a ticket for speeding in those zones. The next thing you don't want to do is talk to strangers for recovery. Now, one of the first points we talked about is about recovery gear and how to be safe and what you want to have to make sure that you can get out of a situation. However, one of the things I stressed was talk to a Raptor Junkies member. I have seen so many times where people help other people, and whether it's the helper or the helpee, someone's vehicle gets damaged and they sue the other person for damages for like way more money than it should have been. I've seen people in the dunes try to be pulling somebody, and that messes up their skid plate. Lawsuit, instant lawsuit. I am a firm believer in helping people, but if it's somebody that you don't know, then you probably should just go on your own way. If it's somebody you know, by all means help them. And if you think that the other person that you don't know will be okay, that's your prerogative. My personal rule of thumb is, if I know them, I'll help them. If I don't, I'll say, hey, I'll stop, make sure they're okay. Make sure they're okay, of course. But, maybe give them a number of a tow truck company or something of that nature. But if they say, hey, I need you to tow me all the way from the back of the dunes all the way to the exit, probably I wouldn't do that. That puts a lot of stress on my truck, puts a lot of stress on their truck. It could damage something. And if I break my truck, I'm not going to sue him, but he might say, screw you, dude. I'm broken too. I don't want to worry about your truck. That could happen, and I've seen that happen before. So just something to keep in mind. Now that kind of leads us into our last do thing, is you want to have a buddy. The whole point of going in the sand dunes is to really just hang out with your friends, have a good time, but also you want to have someone there with you in case you get into a bad situation. Silver Lake has horrible cell phone service. So you're going to want to have some kind of friend with you so that in case anything happens, someone's there to help you. If you get stuck and you don't know anybody, what happens if you don't have a radio but all your buddies have a radio, or your radio is dead? At least having somebody there with you will help in that situation, because they can help you do whatever you need to do to get unstuck or get repaired or get back to your camp.